meeting focused on free legal services for Wisconsin entrepreneurs. I'm Brian Walsh with the Wisconsin Center for Technology Commercialization, CTC, and I will be the moderator today. And here is my Grasshopper partner, Kathleen Gallagher, Executive Director of Five Lakes Institute. And these meetings are presented in partnership between our two organizations to help entrepreneurs and innovators in Wisconsin move forward. Today's guests are Ann Smith and Nathan Hammons, directors of the Law and Entrepreneurship Clinics at UW-Madison Law School and Marquette University, respectively. And our focus will be on how these clinics work, the services they provide, who's eligible, how to access their services, resources they have to help your business launch and grow. And so let's start with an introduction about each guest. So Ann Smith is the director and co-founder of the Law and Entrepreneurship Clinic at the UW Law School. And previously, her practice focused on general corporate law and mergers and acquisitions. She was general counsel for global life science company Promega Corporation and for insurance holding company Winterthur U.S. Holdings. Ann is also a co-founder of Madison Seed Accelerator and serves as board member of Delta Dental in Wisconsin. She's a board member of Starting Block Madison, a developing entrepreneurial hub. Nathan Hammons launched and is director of the Marquette Law and Entrepreneurship Clinic, and he is also the clinical associate professor of law at Marquette. He previously was a principal attorney in his private practice, in which he represented entrepreneurs and small businesses with a focus on early stage tech startups in the Midwest. Early in his career, Nathan represented Fortune 100 clients at international law firm Sidley Austin, served as general counsel for DePaul University, and was appellate court attorney for the New York Supreme Court. He's also co-founder of Simply Contracts, a legal startup. So just a few logistics before we get into our conversation. We are recording this. The audience is muted. If you have questions along the way, feel free to type them in the chat box. We'll try and keep our eyes on them between a few of us here, and we'll definitely have some time at the end for questions as well. And so with that, let's get into our conversation. And I'll start with you, Ann. And most of these will kind of go back and forth. I'll be asking you both the same questions, I think, with a few exceptions. And so to kind of set the stage here, let's get an overview about your programs, things like the history, main goals, mission, who they serve, who does the work, how they're funded, that just kind of overall background. And again, starting with you, Ann.
Well, the Law and Entrepreneurship Clinic at Madison started in 2009 with a generous gift from the Wisconsin Alumni Research Foundation, which is the tech transfer office for the campus. And they felt that they were running into inventors who were underrepresented because they couldn't afford access to the legal market, so that they found themselves they felt the inventors were disadvantaged, so they went to the law school and asked them to start the clinic. So they have been a generous funder for our entire existence, and we raise other money, and the law school supports us, obviously. We serve campus and beyond. I can give you lots of information on our clients, but I think that will come up later as we talk. The students in our clinic are the ones that do the work. Their work is supervised by licensed attorneys. We have a couple on staff, and we work with a statement of work, so you can't just call up a student and ask them questions.
Okay, great. And Nathan, how about you?
Sure. I'll go back to the founding of the clinic. I had moved here from Rochester, New York. My wife has family here, and we had a one-year-old baby at the time. And I had gotten involved in the startup community. I had a private practice and was participating in a number of events, including those. I started in Milwaukee, and at one of them I had met with Matt Cordio, and he said, "Hey, there's this program over in Madison. Why doesn't Marquette have one?" And at the time, I was an adjunct professor at the law school, teaching a couple different courses. And I said, "Great question." I also realized that in its infancy, but growing startup community in Milwaukee. There were a number of potentially great clients, but they could not afford legal services. And I actually met with Anne and her co-director, former co-director Eric England, and I said, "How the heck do you do this? What is it? What is a clinical program like this?" Anne was very gracious, and Eric as well, and gave me an overview of how they did it over in Madison. And ended up putting together a proposal that I presented to the associate dean and the dean at the law school. And about a year later, I got an email saying, "Hey, we're interested in this." And eventually I was able to help launch it. So that was the kind of the inception of the program. In terms of our, mission, and I do view it, in terms of our activities, we are, like Marquette, we're mission driven. The top number one for our mission is really to train business students, to provide them, top-notch transactional legal training. So these are students who generally want to go into corporate practice after law school. They're upper-class law students, and they've kind of moved from, the classroom, and this is one of the first times that they've ever interacted with real clients. So, that's the first part of our mission. The second part is, and here's where it's really a mutually beneficial relationship, is that we want to provide, top-notch services to our clients. In some senses, we're like a law firm, but in other ways, we're not, because we are, we're an academic program. We are slower than, a law firm, but at the same time, we strive to provide, great legal services to the clients that we serve.
Okay. And starting with you this time, Nathan, what kinds of companies do you work with?
It's really a mix, and it kind of changes year to year. Intentionally, we seek out and try to onboard clients that you might categorize as Main Street clients. So it might be a corner shop, restaurant, wide range of businesses like that don't have any designs on becoming, a really large, multi-state international company. So that's, I'll say roughly half. It's not always half, but roughly half. And the other half are those potentially high growth startups where they're in their infancy, very early stage companies. Maybe they have 1, 2, or 3, founders, and they do, they're interested in potentially pursuing venture capital financing. They would like to grow and become very large. Typically, they're tech. Are involved in tech in one way or another, but not necessarily. So again, wide range. Geographically, we focus on those in southeastern Wisconsin.
Okay, great. Anne, are you still with us? Looks like we might have lost Anne.
Well, I can jump in because I do know it. The great thing is that we have such a good, working relationship with Madison. They've been supportive since our program launched. One way that their program differs from ours is that, and I see Anna's back now. And I was just discussing some differences in terms of the geographically, how our program focuses on southeastern Wisconsin, while yours is, statewide, including a rural focus. I don't want to speak for you, so I'll let you jump in if you're
Can you hear it, Dan?
Sorry, I thought I solved my camera problem, but I did not. So,
All right,
I will now be totally focused on this thing because I've decided my technical skills will not allow me to fix my camera. So Nathan is right. We do serve clients from throughout the state. In 2019, we served clients in 31 of Wisconsin's 72 counties, and we had like 58% of our clients were not affiliated with the university at all. So we do have, and we have a rural entrepreneurship program that we're running, where we're trying to, what we've discovered is that startups in rural areas, there isn't, the law firms they're great law firms, but they don't do a lot of startup work, so they're not familiar with the issues that startups deal with. And our students can go in there, get to know the local bar, and help clients and help the lawyers better understand how to work with startups, what the startups really need.
Okay, great.
Brian, if I could jump in.
Sure.
A misconception. Some people think, oh, you're a Marquette program. You only serve Marquette entrepreneurs, and that's not true. About a third of our clients are Marquette affiliated, mostly students, some faculty and staff, while 2/3 are not. And we also try to really serve those groups that are historically disadvantaged. So women-owned business enterprises, minority-owned business enterprises, they make up roughly half of our client base. So we strive to serve everybody, but particularly those that lack access to the traditional legal marketplace.
And just something to add here, that from our registrant list, it looks like we really have a wide variety of types of companies here. So it's it's good that what you're saying here is, it sounds like there's something for everybody here in terms of the small businesses.
That is a difference between the Marquette Clinic and the UW Clinic. We serve people that apply. We don't look at we look at the revenue of the business to determine whether they can afford to pay for legal services. We don't, we would never be representing surgeons from the UW hospital if we use the personal income of the person to screen them. It's we use, is the business making any money, as our introductory question.
Okay, good. And so starting with you, Ann, this time, what's the first step a client does when working with you? Is there an application process? Can you describe how that first interaction?
Yeah, it may sound complicated. We have you apply online at our website, uwle.org, and we do intake once a month where we review the people that have applied. People are interviewed for 15 to 20-minute segments. We ask questions, they ask questions. We determine whether our services are right for them. Sometimes it's way too early. They have an idea, but that's it. They have an idea for an app, but they're not a programmer. That's too early because they may change their mind 100 times before they actually take off. We one time had somebody come in and had a $7 million business and thought that they should get free legal services from us. So we take that initial application time and determine whether they're a fit or not. And then if they are, they go into a pool, and students can then pick clients to work on themselves. And then the client will meet with the student, and they will determine what work we will do for them under the statement of work. What are the priority items that they need?
Okay. And Nathan, how about you?
Yeah, so we have roughly two ways that people can receive services. One is that and oftentimes they're referred to our clinic, but they can email me directly, or for those that want what I'll call full service representation, which is more akin to working with a law firm, we have an application on the law school's website, and it's under there's a tab on the website for community engagement, and then our program is listed there. You can also just Google Marquette Law Entrepreneurship Clinic, and it'll come up. And typically what we do is, we bring clients on a rolling basis. Because we're academic, between semesters, our services are drastically reduced. We'll tend to a few things on occasion, but usually it's, the focus of our work is during while the semester is in progress. And typically what we do is we offer to clients two options. We say, number one, would you just like a brief legal advice meeting? It's kind of akin to office hours. They range from 30 minutes to an hour, and we can offer those to anybody who is interested. We have the capacity to do that. Oftentimes, those clients will say, hey, can I receive full service representation as well? And that's where we have a wait list. And that's where we just, I'm the only attorney on staff. We do work with volunteer attorneys in the community, but we just have capacity limitations there. And so we tell people, we would love to bring you on, but the reality is, we have a lengthy wait list. If you would like to remain on it, we will let you know if and when a spot opens up. For those that do receive full service representation, and there's a number of clients that do, and it's great training for our students. We begin that engagement with a lengthy initial interview that students lead. And the purpose of that interview, and it can range anywhere from 60 minutes to an hour, is really to spot the key issues and concerns for the clients. And so we might identify, during that meeting, 10 potential projects. And, it would take us a long time to do all of those. So then what we will do is prioritize those and say, look, here's your top three. Forming your business entity, getting advice on hiring, your first worker, registering your trademark, and then we will place those in a scope of work, and then we will, and that is basically, those are the services that we will provide to that particular client. We aim to be nimble, so if a great business opportunity comes up, we can address that, but that's typically how our relationships proceed.
Okay. And anything to add once someone has filled out their application, and you mentioned a little bit of downstream. Anything to add to how that works with your clinic?
Well, we have some of the same issues. We're subject to the academic calendar. We do try. We tell our students we run like a law firm. They track their hours. They get weekly reports on their billable hours. So oftentimes, right now is a really slow time because we're in the midst of exams, but then students will start to pick up clients and track hours so that we're working year round. But we can be slow. We are slow, and the wait times, sometimes the wait times are long, can be long, but people need to make sure that they're a good advocate. Any entrepreneur has to be an advocate for themselves. If a person's on the wait list longer than they anticipated, longer than we told them, then they should let us know, and we can generally figure out a way to get them service. But I think anytime you're trying to get free service, there's a lot of people that could benefit from free service. So it's a much slower process than a regular law firm.
And so I know both of your clinics offer a broad range of services, things that you help clients with. What are, for each of you, what are the top 2 or 3 things? What are the top few things that seem to be come up frequently? You can start with Ann. That sounds good.
So for us, entity selection and formation issues are a priority, and intellectual property are the 2 things we see the most of. And intellectual property, I think almost every client that comes through the clinic has questions about a trademark. It's not all patent questions, but then those are the number 1 and 2 items that we see. We also see a lot of terms of service and privacy policies for websites, because most businesses have a web. It's hard not to have a web presence these days. And then just general contracts, employment related things.
So for one of those. Common. So for one of those top 2, IP, for example, for one of those, maybe just take us through the typical progression of the case. Who touches it along the way, and what point how far do you take it? Okay,
so I'm going to talk about patents in that.
Okay,
because
sure.
I think this is where I can talk. And then Nathan can. They don't do patent work, so I think and we have a rather unique way that we do patent work. So if a person comes in and they are interested in a patent, the student that will be working with them gets assigned to a lawyer in the community who has expertise in the technology that the patent represents. So say it's a mechanical device. We will find a lawyer in the community that has a mechanical expertise, pair them up with the student, and then the student will work with them to do patentability analysis. And if we find that there's room for patenting, then we'll file a provisional, and we will occasionally do utility patents as well. But the technical aspects of the work are supervised by the lawyer with the expertise in that subject area. The day-to-day, are you getting your work done? Are you paying attention to the client? Are you responsive to the lawyer that's supervising you on the technical side? That stays with the clinic, but the technical work goes with the client, with the outside lawyer, and we believe in that way that we're delivering a high quality product because we're able to pair them up with someone with expertise in the technical area.
So patent is a good example of something that can take that really can be ongoing. So you said it's more typical that you help them with a provisional and occasionally getting down to the utility. Is that sort of a common common point where you kind of part ways? Is okay, we've got the application process started for provisional, and it's going to be another year before you're thinking about the utility. So yes, that's the.
Yes, and we have had people where we've filed a provisional for them and they come back and want the utility. They want us to file the utility. We have done that. We don't handle office actions because they come far down the road and we never know what kind of expertise we're going to have in the clinic to be able to handle it. So we get them through that initial, I'm just getting started. I really can't afford to pay a patent lawyer to get this done for me. Can you get it done for me? We do that.
Okay, great. Nathan, how about you?
Yeah, sure. Let me use kind of an easy to understand example of a client, because where we don't help with patents, we'll provide general information about patents and then refer out for that. But just an example of a simple food business. Somebody is, they have a great recipe. They want to launch this food business. They want to get their food product in the grocery stores, sell it online. They'll come to us and go, okay, I have this recipe. I want to protect it. How do I do that? So we can help them discuss, the different, options. Do they want to treat it as a trade secret? Is it something that they can copyright? Yes or no? How do you protect it otherwise? Then also they might have a business name, and there they'll go, okay, I want to trademark this. For that, and that's typically for trademarks, we start with the clearance search, and then we will actually, the state application is easy. The federal one takes a little bit more heavy lifting, but we prepare the application for the client, walk them through filing it. Like with Madison's clinic, we generally won't respond to office actions, and we will refer out for that. If it's a really simple one or a simple response to the Patent and Trademark Office, we can help them with that. But typically at that point in time, we say we've gotten you to this point. Unfortunately, again, just because of the timing of it and our capacity to respond to office actions at that point, we'll refer them out to good trademark attorneys. But we'll help with identification of the intellectual property, copyright registration, trademark registration. I think the other key thing that we do, and I think it's important to educate clients about this, but it's making sure that their business entity itself owns the intellectual property. And that's where, some startups, they operate loosely. They don't have contracts among the founders. They hire an independent contractor, but they don't address intellectual property in that. And that's where we want to help the client put those contracts in place, right? Is it a work made for hire? Do you need an intellectual or an IP assignment provision in your contracts to make sure that that entity itself owns the intellectual property?
Okay. And is there aside from IP related, what's another kind of top thing your clinic helps people with?
I think it's not obtaining it, but questions about financing. So,
Okay.
Where many of our clients, they need money. They don't have a lot of revenue yet, if any. And for those that want to pursue VC financing, just a general education about that, about what is the path to VC financing, what might angel or venture capital investors be interested in, and what would appeal to them. Also referring out for microfinance lenders like WIBIC. Are there grant opportunities or low interest loans like Kiva? Answering questions about crowdfunding, things like that.
So
Yeah.
Go ahead, Ann.
We do that as well. And I think for our campus clients, especially professors and postdoc students who are trying to commercialize research that they've been doing, it's really important that sometimes if they want to get grant funding, like SBIR funding, they have to be an entity, but it's really important that they consider all their options before, because once they form an entity, then some of the pathways they have for access to things on campus close, because now they're a business. So we do the counseling, as Nathan was saying, on all those fronts, but then also sort of this unique, how do you manage the university landscape as you're trying to commercialize your research?
And so that actually segues into my, I was going in the direction of how often do you work with high tech companies when those kinds of situations? How frequent is that? And are there other kind of unique needs that you see for those types of companies? CTC works with quite a few of those companies, which is the reason for the specificity of this particular question.
Yeah, well, we often refer people to you to start talking about the SBIR funding and those kind of things. I do think that there are starting to be so many options for those high-tech startups on campus, but you have to be on campus to take advantage of them. So making sure that we are aware of everything that's available to people and making those appropriate referrals, so that if we don't want to be the one that helps a startup take a step forward that ultimately hurts them in the long run. So I think one of the challenges with the high tech stuff is sometimes they need to move more quickly than we can. For instance, we had someone that was going to pitch, has a very complicated technology, and was going to pitch to an investor in early January. A group of investors had been invited to pitch to a group of investors and needed some help with the patent landscape and a patent strategy. And we, under normal circumstances, it would have been a wonderful project for us to take on and fun for a student, but we just couldn't get it done. That's, like the tight timeframes like that just don't work for us.
In a previous call, you also kind of related to this, and you mentioned something about when's the right time to sort of leave your campus position. That's something that has come up with these kinds of companies in your conversations.
Right. When is the right time? When have you? Yes, because once you can't use your lab in the same way once you've formed a company. I think another thing that we deal with is immigration issues, because oftentimes, like a principal investigator in the lab will work with students that are PhD students in their lab, and those students may be here on a student visa. So managing, and student visas don't allow you you have to be very careful if you're on a student visa, what you do in working for a company. So you have to be cognizant of those issues and plan for them, and then time your departure from campus to take all those into consideration.
Okay. Nathan, you have anything to add on this?
Yeah, sure. A couple things. First of all, one thing, and here's where I think, I'll second what Ann said about referring, where oftentimes, people just don't know where to go. And so that's where, even if it's not a great fit for us, we can say, look, you need a team of people here. You need the right person within the university. You need, you don't have a mentor yet. You need that. Also, you need a patent attorney. So we provide referrals in that regard. Another thing that I would say, in my experience working with faculty and students too, but generally faculty and graduate students, there's oftentimes a fear of losing or sharing IP ownership with the university itself. And because Marquette is not our clinic's client, we cannot, we have a policy where we can't provide guidance on whether the university owns the IP or not. We do try to help set the faculty at ease and say, look, there's a great reason for this. And, the patent attorney fees might be $80,000 here. And if the university will pick that up, that's tremendous benefit to you, as opposed to you or your company having to pay those fees itself. So, helping the faculty understand and view the university as a partner as opposed to, an entity that is in it for itself. That's something else that we would do. I mean, just one other thing. When we started, if any immigration related matter, I quickly said we have zero expertise in that, and we referred it out. We've been receiving just many more questions about that through immigrant entrepreneurs. Can they form an LLC? They're on this visa. Can they work for a startup? Because of that, we've been expanding our immigration expertise. And so we can offer general guidance on that. We have one company right now that has three co-founders, two of whom are citizens in South American countries, and we're actually structuring the agreement. We partnered with a local firm that's helping us with this, so that that they can actually receive equity in the company. It's one of the more complex ones that we've handled, but an example of, and we've counseled these co-founders on what are their options for coming to the United States. But that's an example of an expansion of the services that we offer.
Yeah, another area that for campus innovators is managing their conflict of interest, because the University of Wisconsin has a conflict of interest policy that says that you can do things, but you have to be devoted to the UW. So it's important along the way to advise people have to understand that policy exists, and that they're keeping people that in their line of management informed about what they're doing, so that there aren't any issues with regard to that down the road.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So besides getting legal tasks done, are there less obvious benefits that clients you work with, are there less obvious things that they're getting out from your relationships with you, from working with you?
Well, one of our clients came back and talked to our students, and he said one of the best things he got from his experience was he learned how to talk to lawyers, and it better prepared him. He had moved on to pay lawyers because his business was quite successful. And he said, if it wasn't for you, I would have wasted my time initially with my lawyer, because I didn't know how to interact with a lawyer, and you taught me how to do that. So sort of a reverse learning, I thought was interesting.
And so was that learning through just from going through the process, you think? I mean, just the experience. Yeah.
And having legal documents explained to you and being able to ask questions. I mean, I think he felt comfortable being able to ask questions to us, which made him more comfortable when he went to a lawyer. He said, I just think lawyers are so smart and they seem to know all the answers. And it was a little intimidating. And that working with students and a supervising attorney gave him more of a relaxed ability to go to a lawyer on his own the next time.
Okay. How about you, Nathan?
Yeah, I would add, and this is, it's risky for attorneys to do this, but to venture from legal advice into business advice, and it actually makes for a great discussion with our students, because there are, guidelines, or more than guidelines, but rules of professional conduct, that govern us, that say whether attorneys can do that. There's a risk if you ever want to be an armchair expert, right? Like, my students haven't started a company. I have, it failed. I've been working with a number of startups, so I'm a little bit more comfortable to venture that way, but we have to make sure that if we do, right, that we have expertise in it. And so that's where I will offer some more general guidance or ask questions or even point people to resources. I'm not going to, we certainly don't tell them what to do with their business, but so some general business guidance we will offer, also to help them, they might need to identify what is a business versus a legal issue, and placing things in context too. It's so hard to launch a company, and sometimes people, they're so fearful of doing something, running afoul of the law, or that they won't even venture out and engage in customer discovery, and so sometimes it's placing things in context, saying, look, you can do this, and you don't have to, wait until, you've had all this legal work completed. Sometimes you need it, but other times you don't. So just helping businesses with that.
Okay, good. What are some?
Yeah, I do think we discovered very early on, I think the first couple months that we were in existence, that it became very obvious that legal services are a small part of what a startup needs to really launch and grow. So we are very conscious about trying to figure out how to help a client holistically. That doesn't mean we're going to do all that work, but we're going to help connect to them with people with business expertise that can help them do that. And we had a client a student worked really hard to get a draft for a contract for their customers. And they didn't even, in the end, when the student delivered the contract, the client didn't even have a customer. They just wanted a contract in the event they got a customer. And they should have been spending their time working on getting customers as opposed to getting this perfect contract for their customer.
Mm-hmm. How about some challenges that you've faced in running the clinics?
Well, let's one, and it's the nature of it. And I don't say it's a challenge, it's a good challenge. And that is at the start of each, new year, I've got a brand new cohort of students who've never done any of this work before. And so that there's a steep learning curve, and that's the business that we're in. And again, it's a good challenge. One of those, and it's, as Ann mentioned, virtually every client we have asks about trademarks or other IP. Many of my students don't have that background, and so they have to very quickly get up to speed on intellectual property. So that's a challenge that we face. And then the other one is just it's resources. Budgets are tight. I think we might get to funding of our respective clinics. My clinic is on the soft budget at Marquette. We're funded through donations to the law school's annual fund. So funding will continually be a challenge. Expansion, to where I'd love to serve more clients, but it's just we have our resource limitations.
And how about things that you find really rewarding about what you're doing?
Stick with me.
Yeah, we can start with you. Yeah.
I love thinking of lawyers as teachers. So I am a teacher in the sense that I teach my students, and I love it when the light clicks on and they get it and they realize the service, understand some legal concept or how to prepare a legal document, and how they can use that to serve their clients. I also love it in lawyers as teachers of clients, where how can we help them understand their legal options, in light, not only, and then also help them, figure out which option is best for them. And that's one thing that's fun about transactional lawyering. Generally, is it's moving. Litigation looks backwards, while transactional lawyering looks forward, and it's really helping, being a member of the team for your business client and helping them navigate, uncertain waters, take advantage of business opportunities, and using the law in that regard.
And how about you?
Well, I'm gonna answer both of the questions. The challenge for me is I want to help everybody that applies, and it's not realistic. We don't have the resources, so it's challenging to have to turn people away. That sometimes who knows whether I talk to people in the business school and they said, you should track those people that you turn away and see who's more successful, people that got access to your services or people that you sent away and they found them on their own. I mean, it would be interesting to see that, because people come in with such enthusiasm about their idea. It's hard to it's hard to say, oh, go away, so it would be great to be able to have the resources to be able to provide services to everybody. And one of the most rewarding things for me, again, it is the teaching. I do feel like one of the things we say is our students graduate and go on to be lawyers paid in the community to do work for people, and our clients go on to graduate as well. They go on to graduate from us to developing trusted relationship with lawyers and paying for those services. 35% of our clients in a closed client survey had gone on to pay for legal services in the community, which means they're growing and thriving, and so are the law firms. So it's a win-win.
And before we go to check for questions in the chat box, and you mentioned like a noteworthy case in our previous conversation. Can you share that?
So very early on when we started, we had a student in the clinic who wanted to work with a nonprofit. So she looked at our list of clients and she saw a guy by the name of J.J. Watt had applied for services. And he knows that we talk. I mean, he's given us permission to tell the story, so I'm not revealing any client confidences. She had no idea who J.J. Watt was, but she wanted to work on a nonprofit. So she picked him up as a client and started working with him and helped him set up his nonprofit. Now, it was extremely funny to see them work together. She's probably 4'11", and he's obviously a little taller than that. But she set up his, he's a big football player. She set up his nonprofit, and she remains on his board. And he raised, I think, $55 million for the disaster relief after the hurricane hit the Houston area through his foundation. And she's been able to continue to work with him on that. So I think that's a pretty exciting story it was for her and continues to be. But I was thinking this morning of another story as well. We had a student working with a client who had been invited to London to pitch to a group of investors. And who knows how that happened, but he did, and he got to bring one person along. So he asked if our student would go with him, and it was it was a paid trip to London. So the student went along. It turns out the founder got stuck in customs, so the student got to the presentation and actually had to make the pitch to the investors. So those are two funny stories.
Nathan, anything on your side?
Yeah, I was just thinking of one. It's kind of representative of some of the more higher tech clients that we serve. A few years back, there's a graduate student at Marquette who said, "Look, I have this research that I want to commercialize," and so we helped her form her LLC. We helped her go, and I believe she received some CTC funding or council, like SBIR funding, and then we helped her. She actually has been through two of the accelerators in Milwaukee. She's actually in her third accelerator right now. We helped her hire her very first independent contractor, prepared her paperwork for that. We also just recently helped her bring on board her first employee ever, which is very exciting, and counsel her on pursuing VC financing. So it's been kind of it's for a lengthier, in terms of the life cycle of startups, going from pre-entity to receiving some financing to bringing on board your first clients, and it's been an exciting venture or adventure for this particular client, and I think she has a bright future.
Yeah, it's nice to see those stories carry through. Mm-hmm. So Margaret, are there any questions in the chat box? I can't see any here.
Yeah, it doesn't look like, let's see. Yeah, there's one, and I'll just read the whole statement to you. I'm starting a web platform called Sparkitect, a platform for providing content to our end users who are families, and also a platform for creators. Wondering if you can give high-level guidance of things to be considering for starting a business like that.
Apply to one of our clinics for services. It's really difficult to provide legal advice based on a small set of facts. I think Nathan said earlier that his students start with a long and detailed discussion with the client to really understand what their business is and identify what their key needs are. So the best advice is to get a little more in-depth advice.
Yeah, I agree entirely. I will add, just for we see a lot of software service clients, or they're either launching a service through a website or an app. One of the key legal documents for those are the terms of use or terms of service, and they really need to be tailored to the particular business. It can be cost prohibitive. We had one client that received a quote of $20,000 from a larger local law firm to create terms of service, and that they didn't have nearly enough resources to do that. And that's where working like a program like ours or Madison's we can really help with that.
And at the end, this question's a good reminder. At the end, we can, I'll ask you to maybe type in how to get in touch with you into the chat box here, and I'll ask you to share that at the very end, how people can get in touch with with kind of more in-depth questions or for more resources on things. And on that particular question, there might be might invite you to reach out to us at CTC to talk a little bit in more detail about what that project is, and it could be something that we might be able to add to the conversation, or our partners at the SBDC, the Small Business Development Center, as well. So, anything else, Margaret, that you're seeing there?
Nope.
Okay, so before wrapping things up, then starting with Ann, we'll start with you. What's one thing you would like entrepreneurs to know or consider, based on your experience?
Be tenacious and don't give up. I think that it's hard to start a business, and you have to just keep plugging away. And I would also, one other thing, it's hard to do it alone. I admire Nathan for being on his journey with his clinic by himself. I think that I don't know that I could do it on my own. I think starting a business is challenging, and having someone to share the trials and tribulations and successes is really important.
And Nathan, how about you?
Yeah, and I'd say I'm definitely not doing it alone. I've done it through, assistance, from people like Ann and Eric. Being tenacious is incredibly important. We had one client who made, and this was after our clinic, I think, over 90 pitches to investors, was turned down, by all of them. And it might've been the 91st one that they finally got some interest. So you just got to stick with it. I think of it as having a good team as well. So who is the attorney on your team? Who is your business mentor? Who is your, are you going to have a co-founder? Who is great for that relationship? So really thinking about who is your team, and not just doing it yourself. The other thing in terms of hiring attorneys, like after working with one of our respective clinics, and this is for me being more of an in-house attorney, where I would view less the name of the law firm itself and more of the name of that specific attorney. So find good people to work with, and they might be at small firms or large firms. I think some business people generally think, well, if I just work with this one law firm because it has this name, I'm going to get great services. It's not always the case. I spoke with one entrepreneur who spent $3,000 for a trademark application through a large law firm, and she received so-so services. It was all right, not bad, not terrific. Another client, though, only paid $600, working with a much smaller firm that had a dedicated trademark practice and received phenomenal services. So don't think, the name of the firm or the price necessarily means that it's, top-notch legal services.
So earlier, Ann, you mentioned some people coming to you maybe too early. Have there been cases where somebody comes to you and you're like, wow, I wish you would have come sooner, or that type of thing for either of you?
Well, normally if we see a person that we think is coming to us too early, we will give them, we'll refer them to the SBDC for the Smart Start. I think the program that helps people get started so that they're more fully thought out in their ideas. So if somebody comes to us too early, we'll give them homework assignments, and then they can come back. So I don't think you should be afraid to apply for services. You know, like you shouldn't worry about what stage you're at. We'll help you through that process, or try to help you through that process if we think you're too early. I don't know if I'm answering your question, but
yeah, I was kind of thinking the opposite. Like, have there, and I'm just kind of throwing this one at you. We didn't really talk about it before, but are there cases where you just you wish somebody would have come to you earlier because they, you know, maybe they're a little farther down the road, or they've made something more challenging than it needed to be, or that type of thing?
Yeah, I mean, I think sometimes people go and they self-lawyer, like they go to LegalZoom and they create, like they'll set up an LLC with a group of people, and they come to us when they're trying to get rid of one partner and bring in another, and they don't know what their operating, they really didn't understand what their operating agreement said, and they can't really, it's very difficult for them to do what they have to do. And so I do think, yeah, you should consult lawyers early and often. And I think, like Nathan's office hours, we do office hours as well, where you can do a consultation where you don't have to fully line up for services. So that might be a good time to find those opportunities and talk through issues that you might have.
Nathan?
Yeah, I would, second that. I saw this when I was an in-house attorney as well, where people would call us last minute and go, I need this by this date. And you go, wait a minute here. Like you've been negotiating with this other business for this long, and you want it last minute, and it can throw a wrench into the gears, and they get upset at the attorney, and we go, well, it's not our fault, it's your fault. View your attorney as a business partner and involve them early in the process, and it will really help shape things and avoid those hiccups. So I'd say earlier the better. It's never too late. We might have to, there's a lot of, even after a significant financing event, the attorneys might have to clean up a lot of stuff. It's never too late to do that, but you can avoid a lot of headaches if you get the attorneys involved earlier.
Okay, and then reminder before we go is, what's the best way for someone to make that initial contact with you? And starting with you, Nathan.
Sure, I'm trying to type into the Q&A, but it's, for some reason, it's not letting me do that. So you can email me, or this is an easy one to remember: entrepreneurclinic@marquette.edu.
Okay.
Send an email to that.
Entrepreneurclinic@marquette.edu. And Anne, how about you?
I don't know. I put my contact information in the chat, but we think we have a simple website address as well. UWLE.org is our website, and my personal email address is in the chat as well.
Great. Well, thanks to both of you. This has been really enlightening, and I appreciate you joining us today. Before saying goodbye, I want to remind our audience that CTC is a Wisconsin state-funded resource to help small businesses with high-tech ideas navigate a path to commercialization. We offer one-on-one counseling on accessing federal commercialization grants, microgrants to aid in the proposal writing process, pre-submission proposal reviews, and lean startup programming to help you get your innovative ideas to market. So please don't hesitate to schedule a free counseling session with us. And again, thanks very much, Anne and Nathan, and we'll see you soon, I think, hopefully.
Yeah.
See you later.
Hopefully I'll get to see you next time.
Yeah, in person, right?